Hey everyone, how's it going? Okay, let's jump right in. So stETH, for those of you that don't know, stETH is basically Lido's liquid staking token on Ethereum. And it is basically the global liquid staking standard. Oh, I thought the first slide was what is Lido, but is what it is Izzy. So I'm a contributor to Lido DAO. I've been contributing to the DAO for approximately 3 years now. And I lead a team that's called Node Operator Mechanisms. And our job is basically to help the one subset of users. So we have stakers, then we have node operators, utilize the protocol in the best way, not only for them, not only in order to create like the best staking asset possible, but also to benefit the network as a whole. So what is Lido? Lido in Ethereum is an open source liquid staking middleware solution, but basically it's something that sits on top of Ethereum and helps people stake. It makes staking more approachable, more utilitous, simpler, and more accessible. When you think about like the difficulty of staking, even just as a node operator, how do you run a node? How do you run all these different pieces of software that you have to run, and where do you find the capital to be able to run a node? It helps when there's parties that help obviate some of those operational and technical complexities. So basically, users provide ETH. In return, they get stETH, which is a liquid staking token, which is easily transferable and utilizable across a hugely expanding range of blockchain ecosystems, including, of course, like Arbitrum, like we just mentioned before, that enhances the overall utility and accessibility of stakers and of the networks that are using these tokens. So what does kind of like the trajectory of stETH look like over the last couple of years? So you can see that it started around the same time as the genesis of the Beacon chain in December of 2020, but when the protocol started kind of getting mindshare in January of 21, started to get more and more used. So it's available basically anywhere that you might also have ETH. There's over 100 different integrations across 39 secondary markets, and stETH is available either in the form of stETH or more likely wrapped staked ETH in pretty much all of the L2s and L3s that are out there right now. So as Ethereum transitioned to proof of stake and basically a new way to secure the network, the Lido protocol was there to help enable accessing this new way of creating value for a larger subset of users than normally would be able to just by running nodes at home. So it's the leading Ethereum liquid staking technology solution. There's approximately 9.8 million ETH currently staked, down from like an all-time high of approximately 10 million. The next number is the number that is, I think, the most interesting thing. So when you usually see these numbers from like a year ago, these are double-digit node operators. And now we're triple digits. So there's over 230 node operators currently on mainnet running validators as a part of the Lido protocol. And if everything goes well, this number is going to hopefully double by sometime next year and then eventually hit 4 digits. So we'll talk a little bit later about how that happened and what's in the pipeline to grow this value even more. The amount in dollars billion staked changes almost every day due to crypto prices, so we can kind of ignore it right now. But the other really, really important thing and what makes stETH special is that it's leading from an integrations perspective. And so integrations, utility, what you can actually do with the asset is the most important thing when you're trying to build an asset that defines economic usage of staking. So what is this advantage? It's battle-tested security. Basically, contributors have asked the DAO to approve a kind of guideline, if you will, that every time we do a kind of mainnet release, there's at least 2 audits. These audits are extensive. They range from things like formal verification to actually auditing also the test suite that we use and things like that. So really, really kind of paranoid security culture that permeates everything that contributors do. Really, really big focus on deep secondary market liquidity. So the utility from staked assets basically comes from the ability to use them. And if you don't have liquidity, you can't really do much with them. So apart from providing value through rewards, you also need to be able to have the assets be used in DeFi. It's available, stETH is available for trading on independent and decentralized and centralized exchanges, including leading OTC desks. So there was just an announcement a couple of days ago that you can even use stETH as collateral on Wintermute. And of course, like diversified counterparty exposure. So staking rewards are directly earned by users, mostly through the curated set of currently 37 professional node operators, including, of course, A41. But this range of node operators has now increased to over 230 with the addition of new staking modules to Lido. So I'm going to skip this part. And how do we kind of learn about what impact these staking modules have. We look at the way that the DAO, the community, and contributors have embraced something that I think is very, very close to the principles and the values of Ethereum, and that's transparent reporting. So on a quarterly basis, contributors get together with node operators that collect and they publish data around how do node operators utilize the Lido protocol, how do they run their nodes, where do they run their nodes, and how does this contribute to the security of the network. There's no other liquid staking protocol or like federation of operators, if you want to think about it that way, that does it at this scale, at this level, and at this level of transparency. There's also a Lido and Ethereum scorecard that's maintained by contributors that's basically a self-report on how the community, the contributors, and the DAO think they're doing against like the values of decentralization, increasing accessibility and enfranchising more users, and of course, like market goals. There's fully public and well, like very rigid, let's say, governance process. So things start on snapshot, and then they might go to on-chain votes via Aragon if that's required. And of course, community-driven sustainable policies. So when we think about like what we do at node operator mechanisms, the idea is almost doing like cusdev with node operators. You want node operators to utilize the protocol in the way that best suits them and best creates the value for stETH users. But we can't do that with contracts, right? Like legal contracts. Or we don't want to do it that way because we don't think that creates sustainable mechanisms for the future. So you need to create sustainable, like economic-based and game theory-based mechanisms. And we try to do that through policies that basically help the network and also help Lido. So for example, we do this by strengthening censorship resistance. Back when out-of-protocol PBS was kind of like something that was just gestating in the minds of developers, a lot of people were scared about like what's going to happen if operators are only using OFAC censoring relays. How can the network maintain its censorship resistance? So in response to that, node operators and contributors got together and modified the block proposer rewards policy and basically said, if node operators feel like they can do this locally and legally and be compliant, they can use minbid to ensure that some blocks are built locally to increase the censorship resistance of the network. Now we're doing research on things like pre-confirmations and inclusion lists and things like that. And so at the same time, like while the network is growing, Ethereum, I mean, and while the protocol, of course, is shepherding that large amount of stake, we're also very, very vigilant about being good stewards, basically, of the future of the network. And then, of course, we have really cool and novel approaches to governance using things like EasyTrack. So EasyTrack is a system where if the DAO wants to vote on an on-chain action, that is something that is usually repeatable. So it might be operators adding new keys or changing certain like codified parameters within within the protocol. These pre-approved and like whitelisted operations, pre-approved by the DAO, I mean, can be set up, and so that like anybody or certain people can go and propose these changes, and then they are given a vetoable period of 3 days where anybody in the DAO can object to them. So you're doing routine operations, you're doing it in a way that like the DAO has pre-approved, but you're also always giving the DAO the ability to veto or to object to something if they think it's not the right time, or if they think somebody needs to take a further look at this. So let's go back a little bit to the transparency here, just to bring up some ideas. So I mentioned earlier over 230 node operators. The way that it currently works is that there's two modules live. There's the curated module, and that's basically what Lido started with as a V1, which is currently housing 37 professional node operators. That includes client teams, of course, like Lighthouse, Prism, Lodestar, Nethermind, and a lot of other teams. And so basically these node operators currently run approximately 98% of the stake that is in Lido. And then we have the simple DVT module, 99%. And then we have the simple DVT module, which is a module that just came out on mainnet in February of this year, where basically node operators are working together in concert in clusters of 7 participants in each cluster to run validators using decentralized validator technology. So within the simple DVT module, we have 73 professional organizations, in addition to 26 of the curated organizations from above, and 125 community stakers. So community stakers are small organizations or DAOs or even people running nodes from home. And they're running nodes together with professional node operators, doing it in a very, very performant way. Simple DVT actually had better performance last week than the curated module did, so that's something really, really cool. And doing it in a way that basically proves that these guys can play with big boys. Simple DVT itself isn't super scalable. It'll eventually grow to approximately 4% of total Lido stake, and all new stake is prioritized currently to go there. But we think it's basically a proving ground for DVT to show that DVT is going to have more importance in the future. Community stakers are going to have larger importance in the future. And we'll talk a little bit later about how that's going to happen. But other really cool things that node operators and Lido do basically as a community is that they push positive changes for the network. So execution layer, if we actually look at the statistics from second quarter of this year, Nethermind has more usage across Lido node operators than Geth does. So this came from a concerted effort by the node operators themselves. The most vocal proponents of getting away from EL client supermajority usage were actually node operators themselves. And so we didn't really need to push a lot. Okay, maybe we nudged a little. But node operators pushed this change themselves, and it's resulted in a huge enough benefit for the network. There's basically no longer supermajority risk across Ethereum. So that was huge efforts done by everybody. But of course, if approximately 28 to 30% of the stake is going through Lido, it's Lido's job to, as a community, to also be at the forefront of doing this. And from the consensus layer perspective, there's like almost a really, really ideal, if you want to think about it that way, apart from a few clients that could maybe use a little bit more usage like Lodestar, distribution of stake. So that's something really, really cool to see the network effects of what happens when you create like a loose federation of node operators and how they can coordinate to make things better. So we talked a little bit about Simple DVT earlier. So it launched with a 0.5 share. It's the total possible share. It's currently got a limit of 4%, and that's probably where it'll end up by like the end of the year. And it's currently at 0.35. And the reason that there's this kind of gradual growth is that clusters or node operators slowly add more keys. And as capacity is added to the module and new stake comes into the protocol, then new stake ends up in Simple DVT. So the way that Lido currently works is that new modules always get priority. So the smaller the module is, the more it gets new deposits up to its possible limit. This has been using DVT technology from both OBL and SSV. So that's another really great thing about Lido is it's kind of agnostic with regards to like what technologies work for staking. If it's open source, if it's secure and it's stable, node operators are suggested to use it in any way that they think they see fit. And as a result of Simple DVT, basically we've had more than 70 new node operators join and 120 solo stakers and community stakers, which is really, really incredible. And the thing that I'm really, really excited about, and it's currently live on testnet, is the Lido community staking module. So community staking is Lido contributors' idea of something like Rocket Pool, but in the Lido protocol. So it's currently live on testnet. Anybody can use this. You can go and run a validator now on testnet on the Lido and Holeshki protocol. It's going to have a competitive bond for, in comparison to other solutions on the market, like very, very competitive. It's only going to use ETH as a bond, so no weird secondary tokens as collateral. Lower gas costs versus other options on the market right now, and you can run it any way that you want. You do not have to use a specific piece of software like with other LSP solutions. You can use DVT, so you can run it with your friends if you want. And the other thing that is really, really great is that Lido contributors have worked with integrators to integrate CSM directly into their various tooling. So if you use ETH Docker, CSM will be available through ETH Docker. If you have a dApp node, CSM will be available through dApp node. If you want to run it yourself, there's already guides out there about how to run it yourself. And we look forward to the community creating more things that basically push stETH to the edges as much as possible. And from a governance perspective, to really show how the robustness of the protocol is unparalleled, by the end of the year, we're hoping that we're going to have dual governance live. Dual governance is basically a kind of like tailored bicameral approach to governance. So in certain cases, stETH holders might be at risk of a malicious DAO. So what happens if that happens? If like LDO holders get compromised, stETH holders will be able to veto certain governance actions and basically pause the protocol to give them enough time to withdraw or rage quit their assets, basically, in order to stave off an attack. So not only is this like a great deterrent, because if you're looking to attack the protocol, if you know that stETH holders have veto rights, well, there's not much you can do. But it also shows how like novel governance approaches are things that only really, really large protocols can do, and how these things are vital to securing the network. That's it from my side. Thank you.